What's up, guys? Welcome into a impromptu edition of Dog Central Live. Heading home from Lexington right now, driving down the highway. Kentucky is a very beautiful state, by the way. Haven't driven through it during the day too much. Come through it at night a couple times, but gorgeous, rolling hills, all that good stuff. Lexington, has some nice parts of it, but it's not why you're here. It's not really why I'm here either. Wanted to share a few thoughts on Georgia, Kentucky last night. Got a long day of travel ahead, and it's going to be a minute before I'm back at my desk with a microphone set up and all that good stuff. So figured it might be wise to get some thoughts on tape. Interesting night. I mean, I had some people ask me during the week, like, why are you going all the way over to Kentucky for this game? They just got blown out by South Carolina. I had a weird feeling that this might be in the can yesterday afternoon. I don't know why. I was just sitting around my hotel watching LSU South Carolina, and it was like, man, this has kind of the vibe of 2022 Missouri, and it very much did, right? I think game played out a little differently, but Georgia, look, let's start on offense, right? Okay. It felt like, to me, not Carson Beck's crispest performance of all time. Not anywhere close, right? Maybe I think probably his least accurate performance that I've seen him have in a Georgia uniform. I am curious to know, and it's kind of unknowable, but that very first possession of the game, Kentucky heated him up a couple times, and Kentucky got pressure with 3 defensive linemen. And I just thought from that point on, it was like he kind of reverted to a version of himself that we saw early last year, like against South Carolina, and even at times against UT Martin in last year's opener in his very first start, where it was like, I'm going to get the ball out as quick as possible on a lot of plays, and I'm really looking kind of short or check down type throws, and I'm just trying to avoid danger, essentially, right? And that's kind of how the game went. Like, he just really wasn't looking downfield. There were times where he wasn't getting enough protection to look downfield, and I want to be really clear about that because I thought the offensive line kind of struggled throughout. But yeah, I'm curious to see, going back, how many deep routes were there actually in some of these formations. I know there were times where I saw him look to the boundaries to Dylan Bell and other guys for like a go route, and Kentucky's DBs were just really deep and kind of behind. There was a time where Dylan Bell was running a go route and Kentucky's cornerback was basically running the route for him. So it's not like I saw a bunch of open throws that Beck didn't take or didn't see, but it was more like he wasn't letting things develop as much. And I think that probably had a lot to do with him getting hit early and often, and that kind of, I don't know if rattled is the right word, but it definitely sped up his clock. And I think it made it harder for Georgia's passing game to kind of stretch the field. There were, like, the third down throw that he made towards Oscar Delp after the fumble recovery in the first half when Georgia was down, I think 3-0 at the time. That ball, like, should have been picked off. Could have been a pick six, honestly, if the Kentucky kid had, been able to catch it and keep his feet. Like that, it looked like a pick six when he threw it. Georgia was lucky not just to not turn the ball over. They were lucky to not have 6 going the other way. But, like, that throw, his protection was good enough. And it was good enough for him to hang in there a little bit. And he had, I forget who it was. It might have been Lovett. I think it was Lovett coming open, like, to the back right corner of the end zone on a, kind of a corner route, and just didn't have the time or didn't take the time to let that come open. So whatever Georgia needs to do to get him comfortable, they need to do that quickly. Because I feel like last night there was, losing Ratledge definitely, I'm sure, contributed to that as the game went on. But they had Ratledge out there in the beginning, and things still looked bad. And I think in general, Georgia just kind of came out flat. I mean, I don't know another word for it than to say they came out and they just didn't look like they were, really fired up to be there. Kentucky looked like the more intense team from the jump. And I think for Beck and this offense, it kind of snowballed on him. And, it's sort of a similar thing to what you saw happen with Brock Vandegrift the week before, right? The game started going poorly and he started taking pressure, and it just changed his ability to really feel comfortable at all. I still think Carson did some good things. He used his legs well. He extended plays well at times. I thought maybe the two best things that I saw Beck do in this game, the first was that, so they come out third quarter and they go to take the deep shot with Bell, and I mean, Beck pump fakes while he's almost kind of moving and gets that shot open for Bell, and that was all beautiful. Everything in the lead up to that play was beautiful except for the throw. And then you have the throw, and I mean, it's just a bad throw. Bell's, it's a touchdown. It should have been a touchdown. But comes back very next play and delivers a beautiful throw to Lovett, kind of up the left hash of the field, round the numbers, while he's getting drilled. Way more difficult throw, and he hits it. And, you saw that from him, I thought, a lot last night, where bad play, followed up with good play, resiliency, character, all that stuff. A+ for that. I thought last drive of the game was kind of gritty from him. I know that sounds cliche, but it was. Last drive of the game, he's out there, and I tweeted literally as they got the ball back, if you really believe that you have a big time quarterback, and he's first round caliber and all the things that I think most of us believe about Beck, then you can't turtle up right here and just run the ball 3 times and punt and put the game on your defense's back with Kentucky having 3 timeouts in the 2-minute warning that and a hot kicker with the wind behind him. And Beck, comes out, delivers a strike to Lovett, and really, flipped the field, put Georgia at midfield, and then did some things with his legs late. Good. I mean, I thought the problems for Georgia last night probably start with the offensive line, and I think in many cases probably finish with the offensive line. Run game, I didn't think the run game was good. I would remind everybody that Kentucky came into this game with a 25% rush success rate allowed. They have been one of the best run defenses in the country, and credit to them. I thought they stacked the box and they had all these bare fronts, and I didn't understand some of the play calling at times. I'm not on the train of some people where it's essentially fuck Bobo, right? But I think that the play calling last night never really got in rhythm because the offensive line never got in rhythm, and it's just hard to do much when you've got guys the screens and all that Georgia's running at the start of games. I get it, and in some ways it's very Monken-esque. A lot of you aren't going to want to hear that because you don't want to hear Bobo compared to Monken because you think that one's the other, and I get all that, okay? But what Monken did so well for Georgia was kind of create easy yardage and easy tasks for his quarterbacks to just toss the ball out, and somebody can run and go get 8 yards, and boom, boom, boom. Georgia's trying to do that, in 2024 so far, but the perimeter blocking has been poor. And, the wide receivers on this team, I think you have one guy maybe right now who is like truly established himself as, maybe not even really fully established himself, but like Dom Lovett looked different than anybody else on that field from a pass catcher standpoint last night for Georgia. Like they've got one dude who I think really can reliably and consistently create a lot of separation right now, and it's Dom Lovett. And when they needed him, he stepped up. 6 catches, 89 yards in a game where Beck had 160 yards passing total, I believe. Like, he had over half of Georgia's receiving yards on a night where they really, really needed him to do something. Georgia does not win that game last night without Dom Lovett. The problem is, like, Dylan Bell, great player, human pinball, right? Like, you get him the ball in his hands and good things happen. But I did not think that Dylan Bell, and I haven't for a while, like, there's not reliable amounts of separation that are being created by Dylan Bell at times, and that is a problem. I think that problem exists kind of throughout the rest of the offense as well. The tight ends last night for Georgia played terribly. Frankly, they were bad. Urasek, I believe is how you pronounce his name. Urasek whiffs blocks, 2 straight downs to start like a possession that you're backed up inside your own 20. Like, that dog will not hunt on any day, okay? And then you got Delp, who has been a fantastic blocker for Georgia all year, and I think has probably been underused in the passing game sometimes. But then that fumble at the end of the game could have cost Georgia the game. So it's just, is that something that happens a lot, right? Like, I don't know the answer to that in terms of practice, but it just made you kind of wonder, we've seen Lawson Lucky kind of be the feature tight end in the passing game through the first 2 weeks of the season, and maybe this is why. I definitely think he is the most explosive of the tight ends for sure. Georgia misses Brock Bowers a lot. I think the thing that I would like to see more of from Georgia is Kentucky's safeties coming into this game, or one of their safeties in particular, I thought had showed on tape on multiple occasions over multiple seasons that he can be picked on. And Georgia just never really ran anything kind of up the seams and up the middle of the field at him. And I thought that was a mistake. Frankly, I thought that was a problem for Georgia. And I think that Georgia is going to have to figure that out. They need to attack certain guys in defenses and certain matchups instead of just kind of saying we are content with just attacking, not even attacking anyone. It's just it feels like Georgia's just kind of running its offense at times instead of maybe scheming around certain matchups. I could be totally wrong about that. Maybe they are trying to scheme those matchups and they're not coming open. I mean, there were times that I thought Beck had, guys that were going to come open if he had more protection and just didn't get that protection. So we'll see what the solve is for that. But I would also say, I did think Georgia kept things pretty vanilla last night. And then you saw them down 9-6 in the fourth quarter with the ball, and you saw two formations that we have not seen all year long, right? The goal line formation on the one touchdown with Arian Smith lined up in the backfield and the end around and some eye candy. That was nice. They had a formation that they came out in where they had a little stack over the slot and an H-back. There is stuff in this playbook that will come out. And I mean, that I think is kind of something I've preached for a long time with Georgia is they like to run this kind of long con a little bit, and when they get to their bigger and best games is when they'll kind of put some of this stuff onto tape and on the field. But they need to be able to execute their basic stuff better than they did last night. And I don't think that would be a controversial take that anyone on their staff would argue with me on. I thought running backs played really well for Georgia. I thought Trevor Etienne was like, he was a dude last night. Played through whatever was going on with that shoulder injury. I don't know exactly what was said on the radio broadcast, but like, word got up to us in the press box that I think at one point the radio broadcast might have said that he was out with the shoulder and, like maybe out for the game. So, I mean, for him to go in there before halftime, come back out, warm up at halftime and do his thing, like, that was really, I thought, it was kind of like, that's how you endear yourself to a new set of teammates. He was a captain last night for a reason, right? So, good job by him. I mean, the touchdown drive, right? Like, I think it was a 68-yard touchdown drive, and I'm pretty sure he had like 50-something yards on the drive through runs, catches, all of that stuff. So, like, Etienne, very much, yes, like, he's got kind of that, he's that 5'9" build, and he's a smooth back, and he's explosive and all of that, but like, those were tough yards last night. And, he played in a tough game, and he was falling forward a lot in a game where, like, falling forward and getting an extra 2 yards was very, very massive. So credit to him. I think he's, a little bit like more well-built to just get up between the tackles and get some of those hard yards than I realized. And I thought he was good at that already. So, like, kudos. I think Georgia's got to figure out the receiver position, though. And there's this separation issue that's happening at times with certain guys, but there's also just, maybe what happened last night with Lovett kind of establishes him as that dude that Carson Beck, like, looks at when it's, 3rd and 6 and the crowd's roaring at you on the road in Austin or Oxford or Tuscaloosa. But the rest of that group, it's like we see these guys that do kind of these specialized things, right? Like, we saw this beautiful stop fade pattern to Colby Young at one point where, I mean, it was a textbook, like, throw and catch on the sideline. It was undefendable for the DB. He uses his size well. All that stuff is great, but then, you kind of come back and you don't see him really used again or targeted again. And I think they got to just figure out that rotation. It'll be interesting to see, like, Arian Smith had been, I think, kind of not force-fed, maybe not be the right way to term it, but, like, it was very clear to me through the first 2 games that they were trying to establish Arian Smith, and he kind of disappeared last night. A huge problem that Georgia is having with everything that they want to run on offense right now is the blocking of the pass catchers. It's just not been good outside of Dillon Bell. Dillon Bell blocks his ass off pretty much every play. And, you see other guys that block well at times, but it's just not consistent. And I think that is causing, I mean, like, they keep running this little halfback swing pass that's, like, tight, I mean, they used to run that thing with McIntosh where he would get way out by the boundary and just kind of camp out, and the receivers would run guys off, and then Stetson Bennett would flip it out to him, and he would get an easy 8 yards, maybe 20 yards at times, right? Like, that is stuff that you can do with ETN for sure, but, if you're going to run this, like, swing pass that is basically a toss play modified a little bit, then you sure as shit need to, you need to have tight ends that are blocking, or you need to have receivers that are blocking. And I've seen them run that play like 4 times now this year at least, and it hasn't been blocked well once. So, is that a bad call necessarily? I don't know. I don't think so. But eventually you've got to be able to, execute it or move on to something else, right? And I think that will be the story of the bye week for Georgia's offense is what can you do well? How reliably can you do it well? And how do you stay on schedule? Because I think with the offensive line, to bring this full circle on the offense, you saw this Ratledge going out hurt, but, they've got this tackle rotation going right now, and that's normal on a certain extent for Georgia. Like, we've seen them do that with tackles where they bring in somebody different on the third drive of the game. They've done that for a few seasons in a row now, but last night you never saw them really settle into a group. Like, the touchdown drive, you had Monroe Freeling at left tackle, Xavier Truss at right tackle. That was the best offensive line it looked all night, by far. Like, Beck looked calm. It was a really nice drive up front. And then I don't think you saw that pairing again the rest of the game. And you saw Green come back in and all that. Pick two that you feel good at halftime and stick with them at least. I get wanting to give guys looks. All of them deserve snaps. Fine. No argument here. No problem with that. But at some point in the game, you got to say, like, this is the five that we want to roll with, right? And maybe that's a little different if you get down to the goal line or something that's very situational. But otherwise, I think that continuity, A, it might help your quarterback settle in a little bit. B, I think it probably helps with protections and, not missing assignments. And especially if you're going to want to run, like, gap and zone run concepts, which you're going to have to because that's all that there is. You need these guys, especially in zone, to know what the others are doing and to, like, have that little dance going. And I think losing Ratledge last night, which was obviously not their choice, and then kind of not having that continuity at tackle made it really hard for some of their zone run concepts to get figured out. So it's going to be interesting. The thing I would say, though, at the end of all this is, like, the sky is not falling. Georgia came up here and played a 16-6 game with Kentucky the year they won the national title and went 15-0. Like, this is what they do. Stoops and Kirby, I feel like they have some sort of inner little agreement or something like that, like, that I know they're friends. It feels like they have committed to each other to have, like, a one throwback game a year and play football the right way or something. I'm joking, obviously, but, like, my God, did that man, I mean, like, he really is from Iowa. Good Lord, did he channel his inner Iowa last night and just, like, whew, that punt on fourth down, buddy. I'll save that for down the road, but good Lord, did they play a great game to that point and really kind of set up the end game perfectly, and then just, I don't know what to do. I'm going to post some more thoughts on the defense here in a second. I got to pump some gas, but yeah, interesting game last night up here, and fun, entertaining to watch. Fun to watch would certainly be the wrong word, but I do think Georgia showed something pulling that out. And I think that, winning your clunkers, to borrow some solid verbal terminology there, is kind of the difference between teams that go far and teams that don't go far. Georgia won a clunker last night, and now they get to learn from it. And, hey, if you're worried about Alabama, I would say this is a role reversal from a lot of the previous Georgia-Alabama games. Like, past 2-3 times Georgia and Alabama have played, Alabama comes in and they, won like a thriller against Auburn that they probably shouldn't have, and Georgia comes in hot after beating the shit out of Georgia Tech. And then, the yummy rat poison Nick Saban game was in, 2021. Yeah, I think. Point being, like, that Georgia gets to come in and feel disrespected and, probably hear a lot of stuff over the next 2 weeks. And then hopefully, I think for their sake, listen to Kirby Smart and the staff and what they're telling them. So it's going to be interesting. Looking forward to breaking Kentucky down a little further and getting ready for Bama. But, yeah, y'all come check us out, dogcentral.com, Dog Central YouTube channel, Dog Central Podcast. I'll do a show with my man George Foster here in the next day or so recapping this as well. And thanks for watching.